Friend of the show and longtime participant in various communities that I have been a part of as well, Carl J. Ward, says, do you think there should be digital returns for games if they do not deliver what you consider a full product? My assumption is that Mr. Ward is referring to Drive Club.
Mm-hmm.
Could also potentially be referring to NBA 2K15. But I'm pretty sure...
We had discussed Drive Club earlier in the day. He is not happy with it.
So I'm going to go with Drive Club. A lot of people want to talk about this or want us to talk about it. So let's start with the answer to that question, or your answer to that question. Do you think there should be digital returns for games if they do not deliver what you consider a full product?
Yeah, I do. But it's not... I mean, it's a complicated thing because if you buy a game at a store and you open it, almost all stores won't let you return it except for the same exact game. So if you like the fact that you can't get refunds on digital pre-orders, like and cancel it before you ever play the game, that's completely nuts. The whole I started playing the game and I don't like it, I would love for us to be able to get a refund or, like games to have trials, but it's really not that much different than physical media. Like the second you open it, the second you start playing it, it becomes like refunds for the same item only, at like Walmart or GameStop or whatever.
I think the other discussion that you two are having about this was whether or not Drive Club can be considered a full product. I bought Drive Club. I went out and bought it, bought the physical copy. I didn't even get it off of PlayStation, of PSN through PlayStation Plus. I just wanted to have the physical copy because, I just, unless it's a digital-only game, that's how I like to have them because I've still like to trade them in. I don't buy that many games, so the games that I do get, I'd like to get as much value out of them as possible. There have been a lot of botched launches, a lot of problems with a lot of things related to video games, particularly as we have lurched from one generation to the next. But wow, Pete Dodd, I can't recall a launch of a game botched as badly as Drive Club. Is this at the top of the list of bad launches?
On console, definitely. SimCity on the PC was worse. There's been a number of MMOs and stuff that have been worse. But as for like just a typical video game, I mean, it's a racing game that has online components. I mean, it has more online stuff than than say than MotorStorm did last gen. But it's not insanely complex. It's not Destiny. It's not World of Warcraft. It's not this online only world. And the last game that had this awful of a launch was another first-party Sony game, was SOCOM Confrontation. Game just did not work for more than a week. It was about 3 weeks before you could get into a game, and it was about 6 months before the game was at what I would consider a playable state.
So how does this happen? How do you have a game whose entire reason for being is based around your ability to race with and for your friends in your club? How does it just completely flat out not work? How does that even happen? Like, any game can have issues, right? And I'm not a cynical guy. Like, any game can have problems and issues and get fixed, but not only are we close to a week from launch, and I've played a lot of Drive Club, and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for it to actually become what it's supposed to be, and it's it's a shell of what I think it's supposed to be. I don't even know because I can't even experience what it's supposed to be. But I just don't
Right.
understand how this can happen to this scale with a game that is this important, that also comes out at a time where its closest rival, Forza Horizon 2, which is console exclusive on the Xbox One, has been so spectacular of a launch and has
Right.
been tremendous. Like, how do you botch it so
Mhm.
badly? I don't get it.
Well, if Rushy, which is the nickname of the guy, I think it's like Paul Rushinsky, something Rushinsky. People call him Rushy, the project lead. If he's to be believed, and he has always struck me as somebody to be believed. Like he interacts with his audience. He answers technical questions for people where a lot of people won't. He claims that it's a bug. It's not. He's like, we can throw a trillion servers at this thing. The problem is there's a bug in the code, and we have like 120 people trying to find what the bug is. So I actually feel bad for the people at Evolution Studios because they obviously don't want this to happen either. This makes me look at the publisher because, and then in this case, it's Sony because they're the ones who make the bigger decisions. Like, why not use PlayStation Plus as the beta test? Like, the beta test was this closed beta that like was very, very small. No one was even allowed to tell people that they were in it. It was under a very strict NDA, and it wasn't big enough to bring this bug out. And I'm guessing that wasn't, Evolution Studios' call. I'm guessing that was Sony's call. So it's just, I mean, bugs happen. Why they haven't been able to track it down in this many days is a huge question mark. But yeah, it's as bad of a release as could have happened with this game.
What's what's worse about it? Well, there's a couple things. One of the things that makes it even worse is the fact that when you're playing Drive Club, it is constantly reminding you that it's broken. It's amazing how it just shoves it in your face. Every race you start has bright red letters. Not working, not working, not working. Every menu, like most of it's grayed out. Everything is like, oh, make sure you press the triangle to join your social club. Like, you can't look in any direction without being reminded that Drive Club is completely busted. It's crazy.
Right. It is. And I'm sure they put all of that stuff there to get the people who bought the physical version to then go out and buy PlayStation Plus. But instead, it's totally backfired because it's made everyone with PlayStation Plus go, why the fuck aren't all these things working? So yeah, that's a pretty major backfire on their part, and it's extremely frustrating. In a situation like Drive Club, where the game is broken currently, I can't imagine, like, so if someone calls and says, delete this from my account, lock me out of it and please give me my money back, like they really should honor something like that. Like, if you buy a game and you just don't like the game, I can understand the sort of argument that, like, oh, just like I was saying before with physical discs, like, you opened it, whatever. But when something doesn't work, and it's like and the answer of, well, it's going to work soon, that's not a fact. I believe it's going to work soon. I think they're close. It's gotten better for me over the weekend, but who knows? Fixing this bug might make 55 new bugs pop up. Like, you can't factually say it's going to be back soon. It probably will be, but yeah, it's frustrating. The thing about going back to that main point, though, about digital, is companies really want to have it both ways with digital stuff. And it started with music, right? It was basically like if you downloaded an MP3 from somebody, like if you copied their MP3, you're a pirate. But if you had an MP3 and you tried to sell it to somebody, you can't because you don't actually own it. So, like, they want to have their cake and eat it too. Like, so I buy a game digitally, there's no digital used marketplace for me because it's like, well, you own it digitally. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to sell my rights to this to somebody else. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And Europe, in particular, or a bunch of European countries are starting to make moves towards you owning something digitally means you own it, which means you can then sell it. It means, you can let somebody borrow it, like everything that ownership entails, like owning a disc does. But in the U.S. worldwide, but like in the U.S. specifically right now, it's like, well, you can't copy it for your friend because you don't really own it. You can't sell it to your friend. Copying it is pirating. But like, I don't know, like if I had a CD and then I made a mixtape for somebody, isn't that the same thing? Like, the RIAA never went after people for giving mixtapes to girls they wanted to go out with, So like it's an interesting topic that needs to be sorted because when we own something digitally, I feel like we should own it and everything that entails.
So let's talk about the game as much as we can. You've played quite a bit of it. I've played quite a bit of it. I've had a bunch of people ask me, why did you buy it? Right? I mean, I'm Mr. I hardly ever buy games anymore. One of the reasons I bought it was because I've heard some good things about it. And another reason I bought it was there's really not much more coming out for the rest of the year, much less the first part of next year that I'm that interested in. Number three, I really like a good racing game. And so I kind of looked at it, I'm like, if I'm only going to buy 2 or 3 more games for the next few months, why not go out and get Drive Club? So that's why I bought it. I've played quite a bit of it. You've played quite a bit of it. It's so hard to discuss it because it's been such a frustrating experience, not because of necessarily the racing, although I have some frustrations there, but just because, like I said, it's constantly reminding you of its bussedness. I've played through the first couple of tours now, and there's some really good stuff. First of all, it's beautiful, right? It's a gorgeous game. The landscapes, the environments are terrific. The cars look great.
Great sense of speed.
But there's a lot more I don't like about it than I do like about it. At first, I didn't like the whole fact that there weren't really racing lines, but there's just giant green, yellow, and red flags, kind of waving in the air, telling you whether you should brake or not. But I just kind of gotten used to that. One of the things that I really don't like about it seems like the AI cars are constantly ramming into me. They're just very rude, and I don't quite understand that, because like even when I try to race clean, I just can't. And my car is a wreck after the end of every single race because between the cars ramming into me and me just doing it myself, my car is destroyed. So but the thing that strikes me about it, and again, maybe this is because I'm playing Forza Horizon 2 right next to it, is that even though it looks beautiful, it feels old. It feels to me almost like, to borrow a phrase from Bill Simmons, it feels like a homeless man's Gran Turismo because it's got the very sort of same progression of Gran Turismo. There's no real personality to it. There's I know you're going to all these places in the world, but it does a terrible job of sort of letting you know where you are. I don't know. It just feels, from a design perspective, very archaic and just doesn't have a whole lot of personality. That's sort of my take on it. Do you feel the same, or do you feel differently?
No, I feel very differently. I Well, I agree with just about everything that you said. I just view it differently. Like, we actually been having this conversation on the forums because I think it's somebody like Eurogamer or somebody said that the game has no soul, and then we were trying to quantify what soul is. And a lot of reviewers say stuff like that, but then they never explain what they actually mean. And this reviewer did, and he was just talking about, he's like, Evolution Studios invented the whole festival atmosphere long before Forza Horizon even came out, like with the MotorStorm stuff, and it felt like you were a part of this whole thing. I hated that in MotorStorm. I was MotorStorm, like MotorStorm is one of my favorite racing series ever. The second any of the festival stuff came up, I was just like, skip, 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 skip. Like, I want a racing game where I just get in and race. Give me a bunch of races, I hit a thing, I go, I beat it, I get some stars, I level up, I get a car. Like, that's what I want out of it. As far as the AI, the AI is not as bad as people think, but it definitely has issues. Giuseppe over at DualShockers actually made a pretty interesting video where he was doing tests with the AI, like parking in the car, like right in the middle of what the racing line would be on like a sharp corner, and seeing if the cars just crashed into you, because that's one of the things that a lot of reviewers have said, is that they'll just follow their lines no matter what and smash you out of the way. And the cars always sort of went around them and stuff. What seems to be the issue, though, that he didn't really touch on is when you're racing along with them, if you don't hold a racing, well, he did touch on this on the end, but he didn't show like visual evidence of it. If you don't hold a line, and you just, even if you're just sort of slightly going back and forth, like, racers trying to pass you are then going to hit you. And I don't think that people notice that they're doing that, and I think there's more crashes in this game because the courses are very thin. It's all about racing on streets. You know, it's not like wide tracks. So I think there's more contact in that way. And it also seems like the AI does have a blind spot. Like, if you get into where a blind spot is on a car, it will hit, like, you'll have more problems then than if you're like just like side by side. The AI doesn't just go and try to smash you off. You know, it's like it's difficult to really know though what's happening because of another problem with the game, which is that there's no replay mode in it yet. So all these crashes are happening, and we can't go back and look and say, "Oh, I see. I totally cut that dude off," or "No, like that AI was totally fucked up and it was his fault." Like, we can't go into the replay modes and check that out. You know, even with the furthest back camera, it doesn't give you enough view to see whether you caused the accident or if the AI did. I'm talking specifically when you get hit from behind. Obviously, if you crash into something, that's a whole other story. But I really love it, and I really love the fact that it's a throwback, because I love those types of games. It actually, you know, people compare it to so many different games, and in the weirdest way, because it really doesn't have all that much to do with it, but it's the same developer, it reminds me a lot of MotorStorm. It is an arcade racer that has a surprising amount of depth. Like, once you really get down, like, the best line through the courses and like where like just how to navigate everything perfectly. The skill gap between people who are great at it and people who suck at it is going to be huge, where most arcade games it's just like drive really fast, smash everyone out of your way, and then you win. The game doesn't really work like that. So I dig all of those things, and I've been having a lot of fun with it offline, which only makes waiting for the online stuff worse. I finally did get into a couple online matches last night, and it was amazing. Like it was so good, and it's clear that the game is designed to be played online and played with friends. We had like 3 guys from the forums, and like we went in, got in a couple races together, and it was awesome. And like eventually, I think this is going to be a really great game. Right now, it is a really great game that went through a really awful launch, in my opinion.
Well, you're wrong in one thing. When you say went through, no, it ain't past tense.
Still
right
going.
now, it is going through a hideous launch. And the only reason that I'm playing the game as much as I am is because we're going to be doing a special Press Row podcast this week, you, me, and Greg Seward, going in even more detail about Drive Club as well as Forza Horizon 2. We're going to do sort of an in-depth comparison of the two, and I want to be as knowledgeable as possible. Now I'm a big racing game fan, but I'm also not a big racing guy. Like I can't, I don't know the difference between cars other than, at their most casual level. I can't tell you a whole lot of I can't tell you whether AI is doing something smart or not. I mean, it's all I can do to brake before I start to turn into the corners. I mean, I'm just a, drive fast, hope for the best, don't put it on too difficult of a level guy. So, but I mean, I really want to like Drive Club. I'm hoping that the full game does show itself to me once and if they actually get the online stuff to work.
Right. I mean,
I'm with Carl. This is half a game. It's not what was promised. It's not even close to what was promised. It's not exciting. It's not it sounds
I
silly.
disagree with that.
The only thing it has going for it is that the races are pretty good, but it's almost depressing for me to play it because every time I start a race or every time I get to a menu, I'm just reminded that there's a whole lot more going on here that I don't have access to. So,
and it feels like wasted effort as well because of the fact that like everything that you do will be contributing to your club. So we're doing all of this stuff right now that's leveling just ourselves up, but not our clubs. And that's like I keep battling with myself. I'm like because I love the game, like as I just stated, but like I'm like, well, should I wait? Should I wait until the servers are on? Like I don't want to go through all the content and then be like, now I have to do stuff to level up the club. Obviously you can do it online as well, but like I like playing single player. I enjoy playing single player. So I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Well, that's just another one of the things that's so frustrating. Do we know if what we're doing is going to come forward or not? I mean, I'm not in a club. I'm trying to find a club.
They said they're going to try, but I don't know what that means.
Gosh, at this point, I don't believe them. Not that I think anybody's lying. I don't think they have any idea what they're doing. And I'm not trying to be like that guy. Okay, because this is complicated, very complicated technology, but it's clear, no matter what, that they were utterly unprepared to deliver a functioning game. It's clear that Sony was unprepared to support the claims that they made to let PlayStation Plus subscribers have access to the game because they can't get the game. Like, everyone's just like, nope, sorry. I know we told you all of this stuff, but no.
Right.
not doing it, and we don't know when we're going to do it, and just keep paying your PlayStation Plus money, and thanks for your money for the game that you bought, and one of these days we might figure it out. But it feels like nobody really knows what they're doing. I hate to
Yeah.
say things like that because I sound like a troll and a jerk, but that's what it feels like to me every time I turn this game on.
I understand that feeling, but I don't think it's true. And I think you've talked to more developers in your life than I have. They're passionate about the stuff that they make. They're not. They Nobody's sitting there going, "I want to make a game that's broken at launch that everyone's fucking upset about." Like that's why I tend to put more blame on publishers than developers because I think that, there's a good chance that they maybe even knew this a week or two in advance, and Sony was just like, we can't delay again, which I understand why Sony would say that,
If
but
that's true, Pete, if that's true, this is a bigger controversy, right? If that's true, don't release the game.
right,
Do not release the game. EA decided to cancel NBA Elite whatever a few days before it went out,
right.
right?
And
People
there actually some copies did make it out there.
people make fun of them for doing that, but at least they did that. Sony
I agree.
and Evolution Studios, if they knew this thing was as broken as it is, and A, they still released it, and B, decided to hold PlayStation Plus, users who have been counting on this for a long time, to me, that's even worse than just having no idea that your game isn't going to work.
I agree with you, and we to be clear, I'm not making the claim that they did know. I'm just saying that that's a possibility. It's also a possibility that they thought that everything was fine, and they thought that everything was fine because they had this tiny beta test. It didn't stress the servers enough. There weren't enough people in it, and the bug never popped up. That whatever the bug is that is creating this problem. Um, I mean, at first I thought I was like, I don't think this is a bug. I think they just don't have enough servers. But it's been long enough now that they could have a trillion servers up in the amount of time the game's been up. So it's clearly something on the software side. And either way, either the publisher needs to make sure that the game goes through enough testing so that doesn't happen when a game comes out, or if they know that it's going to happen and they're just like, we're going to patch it later, that's even fucking worse. But in both cases, I put it on the publisher, and in this case, the publisher is Sony. It's a Sony-owned studio, and Sony's the one that makes the call on these things. And, I'm Pete Dodd, PlayStation fanboy or whatever, but Sony's who I'm pissed off about through this whole thing. I'm not mad at Evolution Studios. Fucking bugs happen. They happen, and it sucks, and developers work long, shitty hours. They went through crunch last year only to have the game delayed, so they had to go through crunch twice with this game, which, as you know, talking to developers, dev crunch is hell. I feel bad for those dudes. I honestly feel bad for the people that have been working on this game. And I put the blame on maybe the people at the top of at Evolution, but more so on Sony, where it was just I don't know how they could not have known. I mean, was the beta 100 people? I don't understand. I don't understand how this happens. I really don't.
Well, and the other thing that makes it feel even worse, and I feel like I've already said this twice, but another thing that makes it feel even worse is now we're 5-6 days after launch, and you have to believe that they've found the root cause. You can't have people doing what they're claiming to do, which is working around the clock, diving into everything. You can't have that many people looking at a problem 5 or 6 days after launch and not know what it is. Somebody knows what the problem is, and what that tells me, knowing nothing, but what it tells me is that this problem is not fixable.
Right. I don't think that's true. And what evolution said, and most people don't know this, and not because it's a secret. It just has to do with whose Twitter feed you follow. But the point of the patch that they put out yesterday was not to fix the problem. The patch basically has stuff in it to gather info to help them find the bug. So they don't know. They you were just saying, like, they know and they don't know how to fix it. The way that they describe this patch is like it's more like just filled with stuff that's searching everywhere and sending them data so they can figure out what the fuck the problem is.
And I know enough about software development to know if that is true, then that is even worse. How do you do that patch 5 days after launch? I mean, what are you doing at this point? You're just like sending out code to add extra logging to your debugger? I mean, goodness.
How many years have we had online multiplayer in MLB The Show that doesn't work?
Every year.
So I mean, this isn't unheard of, I mean, and it's not even the only game this week that had a shitty launch. The servers on NBA 2K are fucking awful.
But hold on a second. Not to defend MLB The Show's hideous online, because I'm not ever going to do that. But online is a very small part of MLB The Show. Drive Club is based completely around the online experience and being in the club. Half of the name of your game doesn't work, and you don't even know why it doesn't work a week after launch.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with that. I think that it's an awful launch. It's a black eye for Sony. It's shitty, and it's hard to fathom why it's still happening. But it's not. I am not as cynical about it as you, which is weird that we've flipped roles here.
Well, I think, honestly, a big part of it, Pete, is that Forza Horizon 2 on the Xbox One is spectacular. It's absolutely spectacular in every way. Online, offline, the racing is more fun. The world is more fun. The progression is much more fun. I mean, are you kidding me? The progression menus in Drive Club go in these little tiny increments. Beep, beep. I mean, it makes you literally feel so small when you see, after winning a championship, this little tiny sliver of a thing go up. I'm like, are you kidding me? On Forza Horizon, you have a nice race, and your circle goes almost all the way around to another level. Forza Horizon does everything better than Drive Club. Every single thing.
I really, really love Forza Horizon 2, and I don't agree with you, though, on a lot of the points that you just made. I mean, like, one of the things with Forza Horizon is when, when you level up and then you have the wheels spinning, and it's like, what are you going to win? And it's like, that's really cool in a video gamey way and in a sort of gambling way, but, like, I don't want that stuff in my racing games. And I'm not saying, like, we're going to do a podcast about this. So I will, in the head-to-head, I'll get into that. I hate to censor myself right now, but this is going to be the topic of a show that we're doing for Press Row at the end of the week. But I think I agree with you. Forza Horizon 2 is a better game in many, many, many ways, especially because it works. But at the same time, you have to look at
I'm sorry.
What's gone into it. You know,
I
I
had
mean,
to laugh
like
at that.
it's basically been developed by two teams, two incredibly talented and large teams, because it's Turn 10's engine, and then Turn 10 works with Playground Games, and they make this. Comparing that to Evolution Studios, who is like 120 people, and they made like an off-road racer last gen. It's not a fair comparison.
Oh, stop it! Now your
It's
Sony
not.
phoniness is
No,
completely
no,
coming out. Completely.
it has nothing to do with Sony, because this is something that's been driving me fucking crazy. Is people, and this has nothing to do with Forza Horizon 2, but people like reviews going like, the game only has 50 cars. You know, Gran Turismo and Forza have 1,000 cars. And it's like, why the fuck are you comparing this game to Gran Turismo and Forza? Look at any Need for Speed. Look at I actually went and counted. I went to the goddamn wiki and counted Grid 2. Grid 2 which is the most recent arcadey, simcadey racer that I could think of. Grid 2 had 52 cars at launch. So it had 2 more cars than Drive Club. You know, like, compare it to Need for Speed, compare it to Grid, compare it to that shit. Don't compare it to fucking Forza and compare it to Gran Turismo. They're completely different entities. It drives me crazy.
I agree somewhat with the comparison to the real driving fans driving games. The proper Forza and Gran Turismo is. I don't compare them and I've played all of those games, and they're very different games. And frankly, I like the Drive Club / Forza Horizon 2 type of game much more than the other ones, because I have more fun with them. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But Pete, the whole you gotta give the the guys a break that are making Drive Club versus Forza Horizon 2 holds absolutely no water. They're two full price games on consoles. I mean, it should not matter, and it does not matter that a smaller team made a broken game versus a bigger team made a game that's fun and that works. That has nothing to do with anything.
I'm not trying to excuse the fact that it's broken. I'm saying that Forza Horizon 2 should be the better game, and it is. Even when all of the stuff comes online, like I played the online. That's what I didn't want to say before. But that's going to be what I'm going to say on the Press Row podcast. Forza Horizon 2 is definitely the better game, but it's a straight. I mean, like, I understand why people are making the comparison, but they're very different things. It's like comparing Infamous, which a lot of people did, to like the open world of GTA 5. It's like, well, one has 1,000 developers, one has 150. And it's like, yes, we pay $60 for both, but that's one of the things that's fucking weird about video games. It's that's one of the reasons why I've been advocating for a really long time that video games should not all be the same price. You know, like, and that could even include higher tiers, as long as it include a lot of lower tiers with it. You know, like, and again, like Drive Club for me costs $50, you know, like Forza Horizon 2 costs $60. I mean, for you, it was $60 for both because you wanted the physical version, but like that makes sense to me, like the tiered sort of pricing in that way. It's just, I mean, everything's competition right now, and it's like I'm kind of sick of it in a way, because nobody cares. They just want their system to win, whatever. I prefer the PlayStation 4. I love Evolution Studios. Forza Horizon 2 is a much better game than Drive Club is. It just is. It's a bigger game. It's a fuller game. It has so much more stuff to do. It's a better game. But that it should be, considering that it has 2 teams and it had the Forza engine and it had all of those fucking cars already. and they just had to tweak stuff and cut the frame rate in half and make the game look more beautiful, and it absolutely, like, it would be weird if it wasn't the better game.
So a couple of listeners have tweeted some stuff during this conversation. Number one, Mike Chase says, "I want my money back for Drive Club." Rayman says he spent 2 hours on the phone with Sony support today, and they said they were not doing refunds for Drive Club. That's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. I agree.
And Ollie Faulkner says, "You're putting me off buying Drive Club tomorrow." So, and frankly, I mean, I can't make any recommendation to buy Drive Club until it works. And then when it works, it may be worth it. It may not be worth it. I don't know until it works.
I've already played about 15 hours in 1 week, so I feel like even if I stopped right now, I've got my money's worth out of it. So I would tell Ollie Faulkner, absolutely, go buy it.
I would disagree with you strongly. Okay. Let's move on. I think we've successfully. That might have been our most heated debate to date, actually.
Yeah, it was fun though.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, I wasn't I was never angry.
I'm very angry.
I was passionate.
Can you tell?
I have a lot of passion inside me.
All right. Let's see. I want to talk about NBA 2K15.
Mm-hmm.
I played it a little bit. Before we did the Press Row Podcast 2K15 roundtable. Haven't played it since.
Which I thought I listened to. I'm afraid of it because I'm afraid that people aren't going to be mad.
You're afraid that they're not going to be mad.
Right.
Explain that.
They straight fucking lied to you, Rich Grisham, my good friend, the old Grish dog. You did an interview with them, and the dude straight up said that online leagues were going to have human players, or computer control teams mixed with human players, and they never corrected that statement. They held the fucking, like, the embargo was until after the game had come out, and then people were, like, at the game and were like, what the fuck? I mean, luckily there was one dude on Operation Sports that was able to get a copy early, like either some store fucked up or he knows a manager or whatever, and he was able to clue people in that go to Operation Sports. But the vast majority of people buying that game were told one thing that isn't there. I mean, this is different than Drive Club, like the servers are fucked up. This is like, we have this mode, and then it's like, no, actually, we were just kidding about that.
I don't want to flat out call Rob Jones, who was the person you're talking to, a liar. I do believe him when he says that he was given incorrect information. My problem is the fact that there's no online leagues that are functional. That's what I'm mad about. Like, it's obvious to all of us, Pete, who like to play online games, but not Ultimate Team, that we're on our own pretty much at this point. Madden is kind of like the only thing we've got. If we want to play in an organized league with games that get tracked and stats that get tracked, we're on our own. And it's weird to me how in a console generation that is so focused on online integration, and social aspects and friends lists and online competition, that somehow in the sports game world, online leagues are basically being completely eliminated. It's just a strange, weird juxtaposition, especially because at the end of the day, if it worked well, and I probably don't want to say this out loud, but I'll say it anyway. If it worked well, I'd be willing to pay a little bit extra to have great online leagues. Like, they could make money off of me. Now, there probably, Pete, are not nearly enough of us who would pay that $5 or $10 extra bucks, but I don't.
If they ran a fucking Kickstarter, like put online leagues in NBA 2K16, like we need $50,000 to make it happen. I bet they probably could. I mean, they wouldn't, and that would be an awful precedent for major publishers to make. But I agree with you.
And the other thing is, we always have them throw the numbers at us every time. Oh, the number of people who play these online connected franchise and online leagues are so small. They're very small. They're so small. It's the smallest thing. It's small, small, small. And then the ones that do is always one or two people. But yet, there was a real uproar with a significantly, could be small, but certainly vocal group of people at Operation Sports and on my Twitter feed, and people want these things, and they used to exist, right? It's not as if they didn't exist. They did exist, and now they have disappeared, and it's right. Just weird. It's not completely ununderstandable, right? Again, Ultimate Team makes money, my team makes money, but it's just bizarre how in a completely online integrated console generation these things get ignored. I don't understand it, and I brought it up, and every time I bring it up I'm told the same thing: nobody plays them. Well, maybe nobody plays them because pretty much most of them, they don't work. If they worked, maybe more people would play them. I don't know.
Well, I'll be the cynic here. I don't really believe them. I think that they look at the modes that generate revenue, and that's how they make the decisions. But they know that saying that out loud doesn't sound good, so they say this is what people are playing. Because you hear that language a lot out of companies like EA, especially does this, like, we're giving customers what they want with the ability to unlock everything for $5 because, like in Battlefield 3, like this many people bought it, so, it's going to be in Battlefield 4 because this is what the customers want. And it's no. That's not what the customers want. The vast majority of the customers fucking hated that, but you are just counting the people who, like, either spent the money happily or spent the money just like, fuck, I guess I have to. And you're calling that that those customers are happy. And I don't know that there's any proof that they're happy to spend money on those things, And that's the feeling that I get from sports games in general. Like, people have been talking about the fucking crew mode in NBA 2K forever. There's no way to monetize it, So it's like they're mixing it with my player, and so the virtual currency does come into it and stuff. So it's sort of making a comeback this year. And the same thing with online leagues. There's no way to monetize them further. So why bother? And they just expect that people like us are going to go, well, we can't have an online league. Let's go play my team, and now I'm hooked. I'm gonna go buy the $50 fucking VC thing, and that's what they want, in my opinion.
All that aside, how's the game?
Mostly great. It's a little bit animation heavy, which I'm not a huge fan of. Playing defense is a little bit more difficult than it should be. I feel like whenever the computer wants to blow by me, it pretty much can, no matter what defender I'm using. One thing I love about it, though, is that the AI on offense, when the AI is on offense, they play much more like NBA teams. Like they play through their star players. Like you play against Oklahoma City, and Durant's going to put in 25 to 30 to 35, like and stuff like that. I like that because there's been many years where you would play, OKC, and like Durant would end the game with 12 points and Westbrook would have 8 and some fucking random dude would have like 22. You'd be like, no, that's not how they would play this game at all. So they really improved that. It looks great. The animations are great. Except for the ones you get trapped in. But it's not without its faults. I don't think. But I feel like it's kind of boring. Like there are some things about it are boring. Like my player, I understand that they've made improvements. Actually, I should rephrase that. They've added stuff to it. I'm not necessarily sure they're improvements. I feel like a lot of it is kind of superfluous and it's kind of boring and it's like, okay, like and listening to NBA players try to read a script while talking to you is unintentionally funny for a while, but it's not. It definitely doesn't draw you into the story. Your agent is annoying. Like that's like I don't even understand the point of this character other than to annoy the shit out of me. The only thing that I like about my player, like when I'm not on the court, is that I did the facial scan and it took me 900 years and it doesn't look like me. It kind of looks like if when I was 15 I was fat and had Down syndrome.
Oh.
Um,
No.
I'm not saying that as an insult. I've worked in the mental health field forever, but there's physical characteristics that are shared between people who have that, which my character also shares those physical characteristics. I'm not saying that as an insult. It's just that's what my guy looks like. So he looks like a really young, fat version of me being 15. Which, like, I know I'm fat now, but like when I was 15, I was like a fucking beanpole. Like I weighed like 120 pounds and my ribs stuck out. Basically, this is what happens when you get older, all of our younger listeners. So he's like, he walks in the room, and like the agent's just like, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, 15-year-old Pete Dodd goes, yeah, but, I just got a ball. And, like the voice does not match up with the face in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And that never ceases to be funny. I fucking crack up every time that my character talks to anybody.
See, what I love is I played a ton of my player last year. By the way, when we talk about my player, we're talking about like the single player story mode, where you get to be you play as a character through the story of being an NBA player. And I played a ton of it last year.
One of the best RPGs every year.
Yeah, and played a ton of it last year, and there was only one voice that your guy had. Now this year you have 2 voices to choose from.
And the other voice is even worse.
Right. So, but even if the other voice was better, I would have immediately picked the other guy because I love that guy. Whoever that guy is, whose voice does not look anything like my character, I just love that guy. I want to meet that guy. I want to have him like come on press row and just do like 5 minutes so I can talk to him.
Right.
Because I have such an affinity for that voice. It's funny, Pete. And I know it's very early, and I have a feeling I will spend a lot of time playing NBA 2K. But number one, I didn't do a review for it this year, which is actually kind of nice. Like, yes, it would have been nice to earn a little extra money and to get the game for free, but um, I didn't do a review for it. I was away when it first came out. I got home, played it for a couple hours before we recorded the Press Row Initial Impression show, and I literally haven't played it since.
Mhm.
It's, I'm sure I will dive into it. I'm looking forward to playing more of My Player for many of the reasons that you mentioned, as well as because I enjoyed so much of it last year. And I kind of like, not in an unintentionally funny way, I just like the cheesiness of it because everything else about NBA feels so serious to me. I mean,
Right.
it's so over the top and ridiculous. I like that. But I haven't touched it. I've been playing a lot of stuff, a lot of Forza Horizon 2, a lot of Drive Club, a lot of FIFA, a lot of Madden. You know, we're in our two Madden leagues. Like, there's
Mhm.
just something about NBA 2K hasn't reached out and grabbed me, making
Yeah.
me feel like I gotta play this game. And again, I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying I'm not going to play it. It is good, and I am going to play it.
Mhm.
But there's just something about it this year so far that hasn't done it for me.
I agree with you there, and I'm unable to put my finger on what it is, but like I've played all of the modes now. I got my cards and started my team. I did the be a GM, and took over the Celtics, which thankfully they had realistic goals. Last year they didn't. Like they were like the game was completely oblivious to the fact that the Celtics were in a rebuilding process. It was like the Boston Celtics are, like a famous franchise, so you have to win the championship. And it's like, yeah, with that roster, that's gonna happen. So, they fixed a lot of stuff there. And I tried out the sort of stock franchise mode because that has a lot of options and stuff. But I play 7 minute quarters because I can get to sort of the low side of realistic stats with that. And I get bored by the end of the game. I mean, even in close games, I get bored. It's it's weird. The only thing I haven't played yet is online team up. Um, and I haven't taken my player to the street ball courts yet either. So I haven't done those two things, but just the act of going through a game, like it feels like it drags out. It feels really slow. If I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I can get through a game of MLB The Show quicker than I can 7 minute quarter NBA 2K. Like it just, which is weird, and it may not be true. It may just be the way it feels, but it hasn't hooked me yet.
What has hooked me, Pete, hook, line, and sinker, is FIFA 15. Um, I have had more fun trying to keep my Everton club out of the relegation zone, playing a
Mm-hmm.
full season on professional of FIFA 15. I've got 5 or 6 matches left in the year. I've long been kicked out of the Europa League, long kicked out of the FA Cup. Like, I'm not in any competitions left. I've lost them all. And about, I don't know, 1/3 of the way or so, I started tweeting the result of the match that I played and the standings
I
afterwards.
do
And I've
enjoy
had
those
more
updates.
people just interact with me and have fun watching this struggle to to just not be relegated. It's been awesome. I've loved every minute of it. It's so weird, and I've heard you talk about this way before we even started doing a show together, or this show together. Like, I've heard you talk about how, like, you will have played, you know, 50 or 75 games of FIFA, and you will lose more than half of them. You will look at your stats and realize you've scored, 0 or 1 goals in most games, and yet it's just so fun. You just keep doing it. And I know you've got problems with FIFA 15. I'm sure they're all legitimate.
Mhm.
This is the most FIFA I've
Well,
played,
thank you for that.
and but you know, I am really thoroughly enjoying trying to keep Everton out of relegation. There's no correlate that I can draw to any other sports game. Like, it's not fun to play the Mets in MLB The Show and try to finish in fourth in the National League East, right? It's no fun
Right.
as the Nets to try to be the number 8 seed, but for some reason, for me at this point in my life, mostly because I'm really learning and getting better slowly at FIFA, but I'm just having a blast trying to struggle through this and interacting with all the people with me on Twitter who are like rooting for me and you can do it. And when I've actually won a few games recently, and I got people like, you go. It's been awesome. I've been having a blast with that.
You should try being the Jets in the Press Row League if you want to relive what that's like in Madden. But yeah. The more that I play FIFA 15, the more that I think that so much of the game has gone backwards. But, and I was having this conversation last night with Dan Brown from the Press Row podcast, and he hates it. And basically, I can't say everyone, but most people that I know that are not in America are not happy with the game.
I've gotten that sense as well. And the good thing is Pro Evolution comes out next month and has a chance to do something, which is kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So Dan's getting rid of the game. He hates it so much that he is just going, like, he's selling it right now, and Dan is a FIFA nut. I mean, it's just like it took an amazing amount of willpower last year to not buy it twice because he got it free with his Xbox One, but he wanted to get it on the PlayStation 4 to play like with us and stuff. So like he is a FIFA nut and he fucking hates it, and I agree with him on just about every complaint. I mean, the players off the ball, they're like, there's free space over here. The guy defending me is over here. I'm going to go defend the guy defending me. Like, it drives me insane watching my players off the ball move around. And I understand all of that. But, like you, I'm having fun playing the game. I don't think I'm having as much fun as you are. I mean, I'm only on game like 14 or 15 in my season, and I've played it online 4 or 5 times, or actually more than that because of our league. I've played it 4 times in our league, and then probably 5 times outside of the league. And I'm messing around with Ultimate Team a little bit. Still doesn't grab me like I want it. Like I want it to grab me in a way, because it seems like people into Ultimate Team are so into it, but at the same time, the people who are into Ultimate Team spend a lot of money, and I want no part of that. So, yeah. But I am having fun with the game, but I do think that in many ways, it's just the AI specifically has gone backwards.
Let's talk about, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on Alien Isolation. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I know that I'll never play it, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, just not my kind of game. I'm also not a fan of the Alien movies. It's never been my thing. Alien Isolation, Pete Dodd, tell me about it.
Well, I would not have gotten this game on my own. I got it through a share with my friend, which I think I said last week. But there is a big place in my heart for Alien and Aliens. Aliens was the first R-rated movie that I ever saw. My father brought me to it. and it didn't scare me, which was weird because it seemed to scare him more than me. Like or at least that's the way I remember it. And my dad is far tougher than I am. I mean, most humans are, but like so I loved those movies. I haven't enjoyed an Alien movie since then. And this game nails the atmosphere, the look of the ships, even like the hairstyles look like 80s, like early 80s kind of what the early 80s thought the future was, I guess is the best way to state that. And it nails the feeling of this, like, just being alone and you're being stalked and there's everyone on the ship is dead and you're just like, you don't know what to do. And I'm not that far. Like I can't. I'm not built for this game anymore. Like 8-year-old Pete Dodd. I should look up what year Aliens came out. I was really young. It was really surprising that my father took me to watch it. But
well,
like,
clearly, right, he wanted to see the movie, and this, I guess, was the only way he was going to see it. So I was like, all right, I'm doing it. Here I go. I mean, as a parent,
right.
Sometimes you just got to make that call.
Yeah, no, but we, like, and this is going off topic for a quick second, but my parents at a very early age, because they were really into movies, and we had HBO, and my parents told me, you can watch an R-rated movie until you prove that you can't. So it's like if I watch something violent and then I was acting violent, or if I watched something scary and I had nightmares all night, or if I watched something sexual and then I started molesting my next door neighbors, like, they would have put a stop to it. But they at a pretty young age put it on me. They were like, we're going to allow you to watch this as long as you prove to us that you can handle it. And look at me now. I'm a depraved, fat man living in southern Utah in the desert. Don't look in the backyard. It's not. I don't kill hookers and bury them there. Anyway, so the game's fantastic. I just can't play very much of it anymore. My nerves get shot. I basically go from save point to save point and then stop for the night. So if I continue along this rate, I'll have the game beaten by like May of next year. And I don't expect that I will. I assume I'll get to a point where I'm just like, nah, that, like, something will be so scary that I've, like, which is what happened with Outlast, where I'm like, okay, I'm just out. I'm out. See you later. Everyone else enjoy this game.
Outlast. I got out because I just couldn't get past a certain level. I'm still. I could. It wasn't a too scary for me. It was like I died 20 consecutive times on a certain level, and I'm just like, all right, fine. Clearly, this is the end for me because I'm dead. So, something else you mentioned that I want to talk about is Pix the Cat. What the heck is Pix the Cat? I don't even know. I have no idea what that is.
Pix the Cat is a game that is on PlayStation Plus for free, and it is for the PlayStation 4 and the Vita. So
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, which means you should have gotten it already, but you're obviously not on the ball, so that's okay. I'll just put another mark down. Um, it is a combination of a bunch of older games. There's a bit of the game Snake in it. There's a bit of actually. This is going to be a weird reference that only like 3 people probably played it. But there's this game called Super Rub-a-Dub that came out really early on the PlayStation 3, where you had to like lead these chicks to like the end of a maze. And there's a whole lot of Pac-Man. So basically, it's Pac-Man type maps, and then there's eggs, and you run across the eggs, and it turns them into chicks, and they follow you. So then there's a tail, and you can't run into the tail, so you have to kind of map it out. But then there's places to drop them off, and that's how you beat the level. So like you look at it really quickly, and everything's timed. Like there's a counter that's just counting down. So it's not like you can just get in and sit there and go, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this, because you only get through like one level. So the basic gameplay is fantastic. It's addictive. It looks cool. There's just a lot going on that makes it really fun. And I didn't expect that, because like when I saw the art and it was like Pix the Cat, and I'm like, wow, they're throwing some bullshit at us this month on PlayStation Plus. I'm like, what the fuck is like Pix the Cat? And then I started playing it, expecting to hate it, and was like, it becomes really psychedelic. So like every level you beat, like, so here's the level, which if you're listening to the audio version of this, I'm just making a rectangle with my hands. Like, once you beat the level, a little door opens up to go to the next level, and when you're in the next level, you can still see the level that you beat. So you just keep going sort of deeper and deeper, and all the colors start smearing, and it becomes this really sort of psychedelic, like you're just going deeper, and I'm losing my mind, and as you get further, you have all these combos going, and you're going faster and faster, and it's like, and like all the like these lights start flashing. It is one of the most psychedelic arcade games I've ever played in my life, which you don't really expect in 2014, but I guess with the amount of talented indies that exist, maybe we should expect that in 2014.
Nice. That sounds great. I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to be on the road again this week, like I am every week, pretty much from now till Thanksgiving. Sounds like a great game to have on my Vita, ready to pop out, bust out. And
Absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. Pix the Cat. All right, a few tweets, shall we?
Absolutely.
All right, this one from Sean Davies, Twitter handle OMacBrother. He says, any predictions for the PlayStation event in December? I saw something the other day about this. I don't even know what they could possibly be doing. So yeah, Pete, what are you predicting coming out of this event? What is the event, and what do you predict?
The event is to preview their 2015 lineup, and it's in Las Vegas. And I made when the thread came up on the forums, I was like, people were like, oh man, I might go, I don't know, I'm really far away. And I was like, I'm 2 hours away, and there's no way in hell I'm going to that. And everyone, not everyone, but a few people were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't want to go stand in line and play games, and like, I feel like this generation, there's been more hype and misleading with, you look at shit like Watch Dogs, you look at shit like, like with this whole Assassin's Creed parody thing, you look at like what you were told about NBA 2K, that fucking Drive Club, like all of this shit. Like, I don't want to be part of the hype machine that's like, this game's gonna be crazy. And also, like, I had all like a million reasons like that I thought were good reasons, of why I wasn't gonna go. And then I told Arne about it and said I wasn't gonna go, and she was like, "No, you're gonna go." So I'm going, evidently.
Do you need like a ticket or an invitation or something? Like, how does it work?
It's open to the public, so I mean, I'm gonna try to get on a press list, but if I can't, it costs $50 a day, $90 for the 2 days, and like, yeah, and
This has nightmare written all over it.
It does.
All over it.
I agree. This is my fucking nightmare. Like, I don't want to stand in line for half an hour to play 3 minutes of Bloodborne and be like, it felt like Dark Souls, and now I have to turn this into something to write about that's like 1,000 words. Like, I don't have much interest in doing that. Also, Vegas is 2 hours away, but then that means it's also 2 hours back, and then it's 2 hours the next day and 2 hours back. So it's either 8 hours of driving and the gas involved, especially the fact that it's all fucking mountains, or I have to get a hotel room, and then it's like, I don't know. I'm not thrilled, but did you hear her day?
No,
she just yelled, "Quit! You're crying." But I'm doing it. The boss wants me to do it, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna bring her, and we're going to be Dodd Scientifics at this event, and we're going to talk to people. I am going to try my hardest to weasel an interview with Adam Boyes or like any of the folks that I know at Sony to get something, because the other thing is that everyone's going to be there. Like, IGN is going to have people there, Kotaku's going to have people there. Like, they're all going to have people there, so like I'm going to have the same fucking stories that they do. So I'm going to try to work an angle to get something that makes sense for the site. And I'm going, whether I want to or not. And so I have to quit my crying.
What do you predict? To get back to the original question, I mean, do you predict any bombshells? Do you predict dates being out? Like, I don't even know what you would predict, but give me a couple. Or
yeah,
or
they'll probably give Uncharted a date. If they don't, I mean, it wouldn't be shocking, but like they tend with the Uncharted games, they tend to give them a date about a year earlier. So they'll have that. They'll have Bloodborne. I'm assuming we have to be close to seeing Media Molecule's next game, so I could see that being there. We have to be close to seeing Guerrilla's next game. Sony Santa Monica is a bigger question mark just because of the fact that they canceled Stig's game. So I don't know if Cory Barlog's game is far enough along yet. Supposedly, San Diego studio, who does MLB The Show, also has a game they're working on. Maybe that will be there. I don't know. I mean, obviously, one of the major complaints about the PlayStation thus far is that the first-party output has not been stellar and it hasn't been their best studios. I mean, just not even other than anything. Like, it's been all of their sort of, like, I love Sucker Punch, I love Evolution. Guerrilla is good on a technical level, but they've never made a great game. Japan Studio is great, but it was Mark Cerny and like 12 guys, so that like knack wasn't necessarily representative of what they're capable of. So they have a lot of first-party studios that we don't know what they're doing. So the event could end up having a ton. They could be like 2015 is going to be the shitstorm of games. It's like we're just going to fucking just diarrhea games all over you all like the entire year, and it could be amazing, or it could be what Sony's done thus far, which is like we have a lead and we're playing it very conservatively.
W. Kemp, our good friend W. Kemp 15, who is also playing a season of FIFA 15 as Everton, by the way. He's doing better than I am, but he mentioned to me the other day he's also been struggling lately. He says, are you hyped for The Witcher 3? I watched some videos and interviews recently, and it's now on my games list for 2015. I know that The Witcher as a franchise is generally regarded as excellent. Pete Dodd, are you hyped for The Witcher 3?
Of course. I loved The Witcher 1 when it came out, though I wouldn't recommend going back to it at this point. It was totally outclassed by The Witcher 2, which is still a great game. And I am really hyped for The Witcher 3. There's been some reports lately, and I have no idea whether they're true or not, that the game is in a bit of developmental hell right now, but the CDPR has never, like, they're an extremely honest and open company, and it makes me not believe those reports. Like, just I have to give them the benefit of the doubt, but maybe they bit off a little bit more than they can chew. I don't know, but to answer the question, yeah, I as of right now, I'll have The Witcher 3 on day one, just like I had The Witcher 2 on day one. I didn't have The Witcher 1 on day one because I had never heard of the studio at that point, but I got it pretty quickly afterwards. So yeah.
All right. Ollie Faulkner, mentioned him earlier, says, do you think 2K Gearbox have massively done goofed by not getting a PlayStation 4, Xbox One Borderlands pre-sequel out? It seems to me like there would be an audience for this game. I know that a lot of people are excited for a lot of the games that are coming out this fall on these different consoles. But Borderlands has a huge following, very popular, and yeah, it kind of feels to me like I don't know that it used the word goof, because goof, to me it feels like a tactical decision that they made. But what's interesting to me, Pete, thinking about this is that I believe that there was a feeling among developers and publishers that because of the huge installation base of the PlayStation 4, of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, that those systems, software built for those systems, even after the PS4 or the Xbox One launches, would do better. And I think, and I don't have heavy quantitative analysis, but it sure has seemed to me like there's been a pretty steep drop-off in the amount of sales of 360 PS3 software. So it feels to me kind of like, talk about FIFA World Cup, right? Like it seems like the World Cup game, which only came out for the 360 and the PS3, I don't think it sold well at all. And all of us who had the PS4 and the Xbox One and who liked sports and soccer weren't happy about it. And EA explained that as, hey, there's a lot more people with PS3s and 360s, that's why we're doing it. It feels to me like 2K or Take-Two made the decision based upon that same sort of logic. It'll be interesting to me to see how this goes. So I don't know that I'd use the word goof, but if this goes according to the same trajectory as some of the other similar types of things, it doesn't look like it's going to do that well. But on the other hand, Borderlands could be strong enough that that maybe they'll buck that trend. What do you think, Pete?
Right. Well, there's always the possibility that they are going for the last gen um, market for the holiday because it will be rather alone there. I mean, it will have other cross-gen titles, but it will be one of the few titles that's sort of built for it. But there is a PC version, and PC versions can easily be turned into Xbox One and PlayStation 4, so we may end up seeing it in not the holiday, which makes sense because I don't know that Borderlands would hold up, especially for them looking back. Like, and I know a lot of people really really have problems with Destiny, but people are playing that game like crazy. And they share an audience, so it kind of makes sense for Gearbox to avoid that. Come out on the last gen systems for this holiday. Come out in like April or May of next year. Well, with the PC version basically on the next gen systems. But you're right in what you said. I can't think of a game that, like, I mean, I don't know about worldwide sales, but like I tend to look at what's happening like with the MPDs in America, what's happening on the PAL charts, which isn't all of Europe, but it's a good portion. And I always read Media Create, which is Japan and is weekly. Last gen games aren't doing well anywhere except for Japan, and they're not even doing well there. It's just that the new generation's doing awful there. So it's like it's a weird kind of situation there. But whenever the MPDs come out, and it's like you look at a game, a cross-gen game like Battlefield 4. It will say it lists what platform it sells the best on, and it will say PS4, Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS3, blah blah blah. If it's on anything else, it will say that. It's always the first two are always the current gen systems. It's not the last gen systems. I actually argued quite a bit on NeoGAF back in the day that putting Gran Turismo 6 on the PlayStation 3 made the most sense because of this giant install base. Gran Turismo 6 fucking bombed. It absolutely bombed because of the fact that everyone who buys games on day one just went out and bought PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones, and we didn't want to, like 2 weeks later, we didn't want to go buy a PlayStation 3 racer. Like, especially if you had an Xbox One and you had Forza, like, just graphically it kicked the shit out of it, even if Gran Turismo 6 had way more content. I think the entire industry misjudged how, to use gamer terminology, how thirsty we all were for a new system, and how quickly. I mean, the fact that PlayStation 4s are already over 10 million, Xbox Ones in between 5 and 6. The even the Wii U is in between 5 and 6. So we're looking at over 20 million systems there, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. And yeah, I would guess that the people at Gearbox, I mean, they can rationalize and be like, oh, we'll put it out later, but I don't think they expected it to sell like it has.
Gran Turismo 6 really bombed? Is that true? I did not realize that.
Absolutely. It sold like 3 or 4 million copies, where the last one broke 10.
is 3 or 4 million a bomb, or is that just like, does 3 or 4 million copies sold doom the franchise, or is
No.
it because like when I hear bomb, I think, oh boy, this might mean that there is no Gran Turismo 7, or
Right.
like the dud of NHL 15 like has people thinking, whoa, NHL, we might not even have hockey anymore after this stinker that just came out. But so,
Mhm.
is the Gran Turismo franchise in any danger, or is that too much of a stalwart and that's not going anywhere, even though it sold sounds like 30 to 40% of its predecessor?
Right. Yeah, the reason why I'm calling it a bomb, and I think that most people are calling it a bomb, is because of that percentage. Selling 3 or 4 million copies is fine, generally speaking. I mean, a game like Turismo has a lot more sort of licensing fees attached to it, and it has bigger teams because it takes a lot of people to recreate those cars and to recreate those tracks. So they're more expensive to make games, but it probably at least came close to breaking even. It just was way below Gran Turismo 5. Um, but also, I think that people inside Sony, I mean, especially, I mean, it all comes from from Shu, like they all thought the same thing that I thought, and that Gearbox had thought about Borderlands, and it's like, no, people all have these systems, so they're going to want to buy it there, and they didn't. I mean, it just that happens sometimes. Companies guess incorrectly, and I don't think it's Gran Turismo 6's fault. There aren't any major complaints about the game. It just was on the wrong system at the wrong time.
I loved it. I thought it was great. I played a lot of it, and I would have played more of it if it were backwards compatible on my PlayStation 4, um, which is a whole other story, that we should get
Just put
into
it on PlayStation Now.
at some point. Last one for the night. This one from Octung Baby. He says, any comments on Ubisoft or is it Ubisoft? I always get this wrong. On Ubisoft and Unity, even though you guys aren't buying the game. I am very sort of tangentially aware of this issue. Let me tell you if I think I understand it correctly. Oops, sorry. And you can tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. There's an Assassin's Creed game called Unity, and there's a whole bunch of Assassin's Creed games either out or coming up. There's a game called Unity coming out soon on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and for some reason, the game on the PlayStation 4 is somehow being downgraded to match the resolution on the Xbox One. Do I have that right?
That is the assumption. And it's a, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a safe assumption, but it's an assumption that makes a lot of sense considering what they said, which was we decided to lock in the specs at 90p, 30 frames per second, to avoid arguments between platforms, which is probably one of the biggest PR blunders ever, only because they said to avoid arguments, and 100 million arguments started the second that they said that. It's like the complete opposite of what they wanted, according to that statement, happened. But whether the PlayStation 4 version can be 1080p or not, like, I don't know. I'm not on the team. Like, I mean, people are convinced, oh, it could be 1080p on the PlayStation 4, and it very well can be. I'm not saying that it can't be. I'm just saying I'm I'm in no position to say that with authority. I can tell you my opinion, but I don't like to pass my opinion off as fact, which is what most people in this argument are doing.
So where do you stand on the whole thing?
I think that where there's smoke, there's fire. Assassin's Creed has or Ubisoft, but the game, Assassin's Creed Unity has a marketing dolls thing with Microsoft, and I do know, talking to people, that Microsoft has been trying to put parity clauses in contracts, and most of the time they get laughed off because it's like, you tell Activision, like, you have to make your game the same, like the same whatever resolution, frame rate, whatever, as PlayStation 4, and then Activision could go, okay, we're not going to release our game on your system. And then Microsoft is fucked. So I don't even see them talking about that as being a big deal, but I could see a situation where they're working with them and they decide, like, let's just make them both 900p, and like here's how we'll get out of it through PR, to avoid debate, and they fucked up. They fucked up real bad. That's my opinion, but the thing is that I am very, very aware of the fact that I can be completely wrong. It could just be that. Even at 900p, maybe the PlayStation 4 version has more effects, more lighting shit, more stuff, and with all of that overhead, they couldn't get the 1080p. And it could just be that it's the way that they designed the games. The CPUs are really similar in both machines, the GPUs aren't. So if it's a CPU-heavy game, I'm putting you to sleep right now with all this tech talk, but like that's like,
no, not at all, Pete. The only thing that puts me to sleep,
feasible that it would be the same.
The only thing that puts me to sleep is Assassin's Creed talk. I like the tech talk. It's Assassin's Creed that I just wish would go away forever and never come back. But that's a whole other story. So,
right.
And by the way, are there 2 Assassin's Creed games coming out this fall? Why in the world would there be 2 Assassin's Creed games coming out this fall?
Well, one is last gen and one is current gen. Though I think we all know that the last gen one will then get up-resed and be on our system, like on the current gen systems, probably in May or June or whatever. Supposedly, this is the first Assassin's Creed. Unity is the first Assassin's Creed that is built specifically for next-gen systems. Except for when looking at the graphics, there's a lot of things that it does better, but I kind of get the feeling that Assassin's Creed 4, like, I just like the way that it looks more than this one. So, but this is the one that's built for next gen.
All right. Well, Pete, I think this was a show.
We've created a show.
We have. I enjoyed it very much.
Me too.
Why don't we do this again next week?
I think we will.
Good.
Prediction. Drive Club will be fully functioning by the time we record next week. And your prediction of it never being fixed will be laughed at.
I'm not
by
predicting.
This chin. Not the top chin, but this chin down here.
I am not predicting that it will never be fixed, because
you did say that.
Eventually, I did say that?
You did.
I did? I said it feels like it's something that'll never get fixed. I didn't say it won't ever get fixed. That would be That would be even ridiculous for even someone like me. It won't be fixed by this time next week. It will not be fully functional by this time next week. I get the feeling that it will take moving mountains to make this thing fully functional by next week. And we know for a fact it won't be available to PlayStation Plus users by this time next week. Right? So, no. My prediction is nope.
Okay. Well, the gauntlet has been thrown.
What's your prediction? What do you say?
I already told you. It's gonna be out this time next week. I mean, not out, but working. Fully functional. No issues.
Let's bet $45 million on that right here, right now.
The only thing I have $45 million in is the Zynga fucking Texas Hold'em thing on my tablet.
Boom. Let's put it right there. I'm just kidding. All right, Pete. Well, this was good. I appreciate it.
Tablet. I can't believe I just admitted that.
Hey, everybody who is watching, thank you very much for watching. Everyone who is listening, thank you very much for listening. Everyone who is subscribing to the Dodd Scientifics forums, thank you for doing that. Everyone who is not subscribing to the forums but is interested in what's going on, go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Pete, any final
We're creating Drive Club clubs for when it comes up this week.
Any final thoughts before we call it an evening?
No, thank you. Have fun. I know you're away again this week. Well, actually, what miserable location are you headed this week?
Springfield, Massachusetts.
It's a shithole, but it's kind of nice if you are in the right parts of it. I live like an hour away from it for most of my life.
Evidently, I'm not going to be in the right parts of it, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that sucks. Sorry.
I'll have my 3DS playing my wonderful Zelda Link Between Worlds game, and I'll have my Vita playing Pix the Cat.
Yeah, put Pix the Cat on there. And then come back and tell us about your experience on acid in Springfield.
I will do that. All right, Pete. Good night, sir. Good night, everybody. You're the best. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you again next week. Cheers.
Thank you all.